Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining our webinar today. I'm Jay Parsons, Professor, Farm and Ranch Management Specialist in the Department of Agricultural Economics at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Happy to join you today from our Advanced Farm Management classroom here on East Campus. We have a few students in the room, and we'll have some more walking in as we get going here because we normally hold this class at 12:30, so some of them that we're able to are coming in early to join us for this webinar, so we're glad to have them here. Today is part of our Center for Agricultural Profitability weekly webinar series, which usually happens every Thursday at noon Central Time. The full schedule is available on our website at cap.unl.edu, and you see several of our upcoming webinars listed here on the screen right now. As you look ahead to the upcoming crop production season, now is a great time to focus on your cost of production and forecast, so you know what your numbers are as planting approaches and as you start to make those marketing decisions and so on and so forth. Today, we're going to take a look at the new agriculture budget calculator tool and how to use it to modify new Nebraska crop budgets and fit it into your own individual situation. We'll also cover some other analysis that's built into the program, including a risk module. And before I forget, I want to thank Corey Walters, an associate professor in the department, for all of his hard work on developing that risk module that's in the tool. So why do you want to know your cost of production? Why do you want to use a tool such as our Ag Budget Calculator? Most importantly, for making decisions and knowing where you're at profit-wise, but then also how to make decisions to become more profitable. So if you're familiar with our Nebraska crop budget that we put out, like 80 or 90, I don't know, Glennis knows the exact number, it seems to grow every year. But you're familiar with those. At the bottom, we give you a total cost per acre and then a cost per bushel projected off of the expected yield. And producers are used to looking at that and kind of getting a gauge of what it costs to produce corn or soybeans and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of details that go into that you see on the budgets themselves, but sometimes you're not sure where they come from. What you see right now on the screen is a simple example of some stuff that we work on here in this advanced farm management class, and an example that is pertinent to most producers, and that is when you go out and do an operation for a corn enterprise or soybean enterprise or whatever, there's costs attached to that operation. In this example here, I just put a disking operation up, and it's about $9.50 an acre to run that disc across the field, including labor and the cost for the equipment, operating the equipment, and owning the equipment. But you can see on that bottom line there on the screen that there's a lot of little details that go into adding up to that $9.48 per acre charge to that. Those are what we've built into this Ag Budget Calculator. They've always been a part of our budgets, but kind of hidden in spreadsheets and so on and so forth. And with Glennis leading the effort and our department head, Larry Van Tassel, and several others working on it, we're putting together a more user-friendly tool to help producers make important decisions, not just looking at their total cost of production, but also decisions such as, do I want to replace that tractor, and what effect does that have on my bottom line? Because you'll have that information readily available in a user-friendly format where you can plug in a new tractor, for example, on a particular operation and see what costs you to do that operation with a new piece of equipment. So we're really happy. This has been a long work in progress over the last 3 years at least, 3+ years, and Glennis has been spearheading that. And we're really happy today to have with us Glennis McClure, our Nebraska Extension Educator, Farm and Ranch Management Analyst, who works extensively, not exclusively, but extensively, the ABC tool and developing our annual crop budgets. And Glennis, it's great to have you here today. And I think with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you so you can walk people through our ABC tool.
All right. Thank you, Jay. Can get things ready here. All right, thanks for that introduction. And yes, I really appreciate all the help that Dr. Parsons has put into this project as well. So we have a team of folks that meet almost weekly, and I visit quite often with our developer. We're really, it's really come along very, very nicely. And like Jay said, we're working on the Ag Budget Calculator to be very user-friendly. I've got some sort of intro comments to make, and then we'll take a look. I'll flip over and actually show you the program live. and we can kind of maneuver around that for a little bit. But yeah, as Jay said, I work with the budgets, both the livestock and crop budgets. Right now we have the ag budget calculator set up so it can handle the crop budgets really, really well. And so one of our next steps will be doing the livestock budgets. We've had some wonderful funders that help us with getting started with this. The Nebraska Soybean Board was really instrumental with an initial grant to help us get started with the ag budget calculator. And then we also have the North Central Extension Center helping us with USDA NIFA funds as well, particularly with the risk module and some other things. And I'll talk a little bit later about some of the additional tools or decision pieces that we'll be putting into the program. So it's a work in progress, but it's working really, really well. And it's really been fun to work with, actually, as we've worked on developing it. But again, just some initial comments about, let's see if I can get my screen to work in here. Okay. All right, so again, Jay and I are both, ag economists, and this year we've heard a lot, of course, about the input costs and lots of concern about all of that. But I just want to remind you, I like this slide that our colleague Jessica put together, just basic, right? We have to remember that there's also the income side. There's also opportunities, hopefully yet in the market as the year goes on, and even now to do some pre-pricing. If you're confident in understanding your cost, you should be able to make some decisions from that. And so again, that good reason for budgeting is understanding what all goes into your per acre and your per bushel or per unit costs. And I use this slide a lot as well, in that knowing your cost of production, there's several reasons why we want to do that. So to use in marketing, making some decisions, and even just looking at some cost control. Looking at comparing various enterprises as far as what those costs are. And I know a lot of folks are doing that this year, especially as you're looking at different input costs on different crops. And, we've heard where, there may be some acres shifting from one enterprise to the other. So again, depending on if you can actually get some of the products that you need for inputs, I'm sure that weighs into the decision, but also even just looking at the profitability. And then sometimes just looking at our production practices, looking at what others are doing and how cost savings might come along from some of that information. And yes, Jay, we do have 84 2020 crop budgets, and that represents 15 different crops. We like to talk about corn a lot, soybeans, wheat, but we've got dry edible beans, we've got sugar beets, just a bunch of different crops in our budgets. And I like to thank Bob Klein at our North Platte Center for working on those for years and years. So together, Bob and I, put together those budgets. And I would really like to have small groups of farmers across the state taking a look at our budgets. And then we can actually do some representative budgets a little bit that were more closely aligned to the different areas of our state. So that's on my purview. I've got some of those meetings that I'm setting up now. And of course, we have to try to catch all the crop producers before they get back into the field. So anyway, that's a process that hopefully with the new ag budget calculator, we can continue to increase awareness, increase information with what we're doing with our crop budgets, and even make them better as we go along. And so those 84 crop budgets, yes, we have them on CropWatch. They're on our CAP website, Center for Ag Profitability website. And we have those in Excel, and we also have PDF printable versions. We have actually two different printable versions there now, because I have now all of the ABC, the Ag Budget Calculator reports there as well. And we have all of those budgets loaded into the actual program, the ABC program, so that they can be downloaded. So an individual user can have their own account, download a budget that might fit their practices, and then go in and make changes. So, or as you'll see, you can actually start from scratch and just start entering your information for each of your budgets, or you can actually pull down some of our crop budgets and go from there. Okay, so that's a really nice feature as well. So there's the website there for our cap.unl.edu, and our crop budget are there. Again, I just did some quick summaries here for you. If we have about, I think, 11 dryland corn budgets. So if I averaged all those, that production out for a 2022 year, we have 150 bushels average, cash cost 287, economic cost 405. You can see how that changes with irrigated and with dryland and irrigated soybeans and also wheat. All right, so, but I also like to point out, why do we show cash costs and economic costs? The economic cost really is a total, and the economic cost is, in the long run, you really need to cover all of your costs, your total costs. And economic costs includes the opportunity cost of investment in our equipment and in our land investments. And it also includes our non-cash costs, such as depreciation. So over the long run, you want to be able to replace equipment and also pay for your land, that type of thing. So that's what, in the short run, and we've had years like this where we're just covering our cash costs, and we can't do that forever and survive. And so, we do show both those figures in our budgets. Also interesting, I just took a few of the cost factors this year, and to show you now, I do want to mention that as you look at our 2022 crop budgets, we had to basically do those as of a point in time. So I would say those were probably around that October 1st timeframe. There was some research being done on costs, prices into that August, September timeframe. And so as of October 1, we said, okay, or it was October 1, October 15, somewhere in there, where we were actually putting sort of the final touches on some of our crop budgets. So that's why it's really even more critical this year that if you could download, let's say, this dryland number 23 budget or an irrigated budget, and you say, hey, that really fits with what I'm doing, but you might say, but my fertilizer cost has gone up even further. So it might be 20 to 30% higher. You could easily go in and change those input costs and change your information. But I just show you, this is where we were. We actually saw a doubling of the fertilizer. You can see how pesticides had gone up at that point in time. And also, I just for interest sake, as of November 15th, the USDA daily corn price was at 423 back in 2020. You can see where we were with our costs in relationship to that. And then in 2021, at the end of the year, November 15th, thereabouts, 571 was that price. And of course, we don't know what that's going to be for 2022. So again, it's not only looking at your costs, but it's looking at your opportunities for revenue on the other side. And then I just did some quick, this is that dryland corn 23, just a picture of kind of how things have changed from the 2020 timeframe to the 22 timeframe based on the university budgets. And of course, materials and services really jumped there. We've got land costs going up a bit, field operations, again, as we look at machinery and equipment costs, those things are going up as well, and slightly. So all that makes a difference on our total costs, of course. And here's an irrigated corn budget. Now I have that as number 32. I think this year it's actually 33 because we squeezed in another, actually we added a strip till corn budget this year. So that replaced that, we added an extra corn budget. So we just number them from 1 to 84. And so our numbers change. So that's always interesting when I have to look back and try to compare years to years on making sure that I'm comparing the right budgets from one year to the next. So that's why I made note of that. And so you can see sort of what's going on with that. And again, those increases or changes in costs. Soybeans, all right, now with that, this is actually a soybean dryland budget number 59. And for this year, it's a 50 bushel budget, 50 bushel yield, 671 on cash costs, 932 on economic costs. I just want to point that out, and I've got those. And actually, I just did a Cornhusker economics paper. So we do have, I don't know, Ryan, if you want to put in the chat the link to that paper, because these charts are in that paper, and that was just, I think, went out this week. And then the irrigated soybean budgets, we're looking at 562 on cash, 875 on economic, and we've got a 75 bushel yield on that projected. All right, so again, I wanted to spend time with this in this webinar to really show you the ABC program. And that actual program link is agbudget.unl.edu as shown here. And so you can actually go in. Everybody needs to create their own account. So, and in order to do that, all you really need is your email, and you, as we do with all of our programs, we have to come up with a password, right? So you have a password so that you can get back into it. So your email and creating a password will help you create your actual account. And then you can start from scratch. You can just start working with the program, or you can actually copy and download one of our budgets into your account. So just keep in mind that if you take one of our 2022 budgets, everything that's in that budget then will be populated into your account. So that means all the materials that we've used, the equipment, and so on. But then you would want to go in and modify, like let's say you're applying a different rate, you have a different price for inputs, you will want to put your own machinery information in there probably. And that just makes it so it's more customized, and particularly more what your costs are. And we'll take a look at how that works. So, and then you would save those budgets as you're working on those. They go into your account, and you're able to go back from time to time, look at those, update those, all that type of stuff. And university is not going to be using your information. We are a research-based institution, and we do not want to look at somebody's budgets and say, that's what it should be, okay? Because we don't know if you've put in fictitious information, or if you were just practicing or messing with it or whatever. We can't use individual budgets, in our work. So we just have this tool for you to use to kind of actually make better use of what we're doing on the backside in creating those budgets. And again, you can update as you go along. We've made it so it's actually mobile friendly. So you could use your phone when you're in the field to take a look at, hey, something's changed. What was that? You could actually do that. But we encourage folks to sit down at their computer and really work on their budgets to start the year. It's easier to really use the computer, but once you have that, of course, you can log in. If you've got Wi-Fi or online access, you can get to your budgets. The other nice feature, duplicating an existing budget. So if I've got multiple fields of corn or soybeans or whatever it might be, and I want to, enter one, and then there's just some slight changes on another one, I could actually duplicate what I just went through and then just go in and make the few changes. So that's a really, really great feature that we have. And then the other thing is, if you work on 2022 budgets now and you use that information next year when it comes to 2023, just duplicating, if there's not a lot of changes, you just go in and update some things. It's going to save a lot of work. So just as anything, just getting familiar with it, sitting down, working with it. I talked to one producer a week or two ago who said, he was able to just go into the program and start working with it and start creating his budgets. He thought it was pretty intuitive. He thought it was pretty useful to do that. So I hope that might work for you as well. So just a couple quick screenshots I'm going to share with you, and then I'll flip over to the actual program. But here's a list of the enterprises, and we'll look at this, but we've got tabs across the top and then action items in the program off to the right. But here's like a 2022, I had named that October because I was actually then using some of our budget information and doing some actual cost increases because we saw where fertilizer and a lot of things were happening around that time frame as far as the cost increases going. So I created this particular account year, and these are the budgets. And I just wanted to show you could actually split each of your farms and identify, you can name them however you want to. But I've got a dryland east farm that's cash rented. I've got an irrigated quarter on the home place, and so on. And then I'll show you how that we're working towards having where you can accumulate all of those and take a look at what your overall cost is of corn. And obviously that's going to be important as you're looking at your marketing aspects. But like in this case, I put all of my soybeans together. They're all on dry land, and I basically do the same cropping practices. So I've got all of my acres in this one budget, or I could have split it out by farms if I wanted to, but that's just example of that. Just a lot of ways to work this thing. The other thing, if you're at all familiar with our budgets, we have worked and we really kind of want folks to think in terms of how do I raise that crop? What are the processes that I do to come to that? And so here is your field operations, and it's kind of by chronological order, okay? And so the first thing I do on a no-till crop is I do some burn down. You know, I'm planting, and I can name these however I want, spray fertilizer or apply fertilizer, whatever. I can name those and then just go down the list. And it's kind of important also to have this okay here, because that means I've got that all completely filled out. So if I forgot to put the tractor in that I was using on this operation, it would actually flag that and say, it would be red, it's, you know, not ready kind of thing, okay? But okay on the green means we're set to go and everything should be in there. And then I can go in and edit, I can copy. I actually, if I had several, like here, if this herbicides were, I did 2 applications and they were exactly alike, I could put one in and then copy it and then have another application there. So there's that copy feature. Or if I've really messed things up and I want to delete, there's always that button there too. And this just shows us what goes into those field operations. So we do have a place where we will put labor. Anytime you see UNL, that really means that I'm working off of one of our budgets. So I've got our labor cost in there from our budget, but you could actually add, of course, your time as the operator, owner operator. You can add your hired folks into there and how much you pay them. And let's say someone does all that. This happens to be a planting operation. And so you could actually say, okay, Bob plants, you know, he does that every year. And so you could say he's the one that's doing the labor. And then again, you'll have your information in on your own power units. You can name them how you want, the old red tractor, you know, John Deere green, whatever you call, you know, whatever you name your power units and your implements, you'll put that information in. And then also, of course, your inputs that go into this. In this case, we had some starter and the seed showing in this particular field operation. So that's really how it works, is think in terms of how do you grow your crop? And then this is the detail on the materials. So this again might be old news, but here's this fertilizer and what it costs per gallon. You could actually put different units in, and then the corn seed was put in by seed units. And then we can actually go in and change that. We can say, well, this is how much we apply of this, you know, per each of those operations. We put 6 gallons. This is what we show in our budgets. And so that's kind of how that works, is the material input and application side of things. All right, so I've talked about you can customize. We've got cash and economic budget reports. We actually added a revenue section. So in our budgets, for years and years, we really have just shown the cost side. And now with the ABC program, you can put in your revenue. And right now it's pretty static. You can say, oh, this is what I'm expecting for my corn revenue for this next year. This is what I'm figuring for the price. But we'll eventually be adding where we can, you can actually, if you're doing some pre-pricing, let's say you price 10% now, 20% later, you can actually change some of that. I'll talk a little bit about the risk section before our time is up today. I'll show you that. That's, you know, it's an interesting a piece that we've added to this as additional decision making or something to take a look at there. And then also, of course, when you're figuring out your budgets, you really need to think about, you know, what's my overhead and how am I charging my overhead over all my crop acres? Then, of course, even some of that if you've got livestock. But also, I haven't talked much about this, but when you put in your power units and your implements, we've got engineering formulas in the background in the program. And so that's helping to determine salvage value for depreciation purposes, some of the fuel efficiencies, the repair costs, you know, in those formulas are in the background. And so it's going to tell you if you got all your crop budgets in, and let's say you don't have a lot of livestock or any at all, let's say, and let's say it comes up and says your repairs are going to be $20,000 for the year, and you say, no, usually it's more like 30,000. All right, so you could actually go into each area and change those. You can actually override those engineering formula results, or you could do that, or you could actually, we'll have a report in the whole farm area that where you can go in and say, no, I'm going to change my repair cost now to 30,000, and I'm going to split it or reallocate it basically over all my enterprises. So there's some sort of checks and balances in this thing, where you can override what is being calculated, or you can actually go back and do some reconciliation of those things. So we want you to think in terms of how are all my costs being generated, and how are they actually all allocated across all of my budgets. And so we're trying to account for all of your pennies, I guess, that go into your crop production, and eventually the livestock, which we will add the livestock budgets. So we'll look briefly at the whole farm report, and then we are just getting a good start on our cash flow feature. Because again, if you're saying this is what my costs are, we should be able to account for most of all of your cash that goes into your budgets. All right, so I do have training sessions scheduled actually online right now, planning to do some more training sessions out across the state. And so kind of keep an eye on that, but here's the website, cap.unl.edu. ABC, lots of information. I do have some tutorials up there. I've got some, it's a constant sort of update because things are improving all the time with the program. So I will be updating some of those, but they can be really helpful to you to get started as well. And just a reminder, here's the actual link to the program, if you want to get into that, and then my contacts. So the training sessions that we've been doing on Zoom, actually, we only have a few people. So it's almost like a one-on-one kind of helping people work on the program. So I'd really like to see more people if they're interested and want to have some sort of training just to hop on with us. Okay. So I'm going to now get into the program. If I can get, all right. So let's see, Ryan, do we see the program now?
Not yet.
Okay,
It doesn't look like your screen is shared anymore.
Oh, that might help. Share the screen. Let's see. How's that?
There we go.
All right, very good, very good. So now I'm actually into a program. I'm actually into a development site. And so it's a little bit different than what you would be in, but this is how this will look. Okay, and I wanted to show you some features of it. So as I mentioned, we've got the tabs across the top, and then there's drop downs. So I could go in after I have created my account. You'll see a screen that comes up. Actually, I think there's an email that gets sent to you. You know how that is. Then you click on to get into the program for the first time. And anyway, so you can create an enterprise, or you can actually go in and duplicate an enterprise. But this is really a section. The manage enterprise area is where I go back to a lot. Okay. Now I've got shown here just the 2022 budgets that I've worked on so far. And a lot of these have been what I've downloaded from the university page. So here again, that drop down, here's those university budgets. And so that's right there for you. You could actually go to the CropWatch link, but this is where you would go to take a look at all our 84 budgets and then select what you want to download into your account. So you want to get familiar with what we've got behind those and then download those. Manage inputs, that section. I could go into for 2022, what's my fuel? What's my average fuel price I'm projecting? What's my operating interest rate? What would be my opportunity interest rate, my investment interest rate? That kind of thing is in there, just a short little area for annual rates. All my power units, I'll click on that. And again, this is like a practice account, but you can see where I've got various power units. I've got a sprayer, I've got the big red tractor. Anytime you see something like this, university, that's just what we have included. But I could actually, if you want to clean those up and you want to just trash them out of your account, you can easily do that. Or you could just go in and rename it. Okay. So like I could go right here and I don't see that I can rename it right there. But anyway, I could just trash it and add my own for sure. So I'm going to use the back button and go back to where we were there. So again, that's the list. I could also would have a list of implements. Okay, a lot of the university information there. Again, you can use those if they kind of fit with what you want, or you can actually go in and put your own in detail, which we would really encourage. Manage inputs. So this is all the inputs that I've got in, the prices associated with those. I can easily go in and change a price. All right, that actually might be that one. Of course, I picked that one, but I always think that was a lot, much higher in price. Yeah, well, no, 55, I think that's right. Okay, so I'm gonna go back. So again, all these different areas are kind of popped down. Here's that labor section. I have Kim as a person that maybe it's a family member and I want to value that time. Maybe she's paid or unpaid. And so I can put in that information behind the scenes into the labor area. University labor, we figured $25 an hour. I haven't looked at this for a while, but I've got me in there as the owner operator and I'm unpaid. I could kind of figure it on a salary basis. This is what I want to pull. This is what the value is from what I'm doing with my crop enterprises. How many annual hours do I figure on that? And then just information like that goes into that section. So again, each time you're doing field operations, you select then who's doing that work. And we'll have that fairly similar when we talk about the livestock budgets, who's doing most of that work. Also your irrigation systems. And then we've got vehicles and facilities that might not be direct kind of cost to a particular enterprise, but you would allocate as kind of that overhead. So if I have a pickup and I use it fully for the farm and I want to figure out those expenses and then allocate those across my acres, I can do that. All right. So again, the drop-down boxes here, and then we've got the whole farm information. And I'll come back to that in just a little bit. All right. So I'm going to, then also action items over here on the right. So I could actually do similar things here. Okay. I'm in the power unit section that's open right here. If I close that out, it goes back. Let's say I want to add an implement. I can add an implement right here. I can choose. We have you choosing a category because as I said, with the engineering formulas, there's certain things, certain kind of information that we have to have. And so, if it's a large round baler, it'll know what some of that is. And we have we have some things pre-populated there, but you can definitely go in and make changes on that. And I think this is old news, actually, with the the actual 2022 budgets. We do update those list prices, but you can actually do your own research and put your own information in. Age of when you purchased it, how many years are you going to own it? Again, most of you are going to own something more than a year, but that's just a factor. That's just what we plug in to make our budgets work. And then, how many acres is it used? What's the coverage rate? And then we've got information on that. And then it figures the salvage value and the repairs. And I can overwrite that. Let's say, no, I spend a lot more money on that baler every year than what's shown, so I can change that and then save that implement, and then it's in there. So it's giving me some kind of error message because I didn't put a name in, but that's fine. All right. So again, with a limited amount of time, it's hard to show you, everything. Do we have some urgent questions from anybody right now? I'll take a look. All right, seeing none. Is that right, Jay?
Right. I don't see any questions yet. Sorry, I had myself muted here. I had to get up to the front of the room.
All right. So I just want to show you here that in this account, it actually shows me what I had for 2021 and 2020, but I can actually sort and just look at the 2022s. Okay. And I really like that because I wanted to show you what I had in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and go over to the whole farm area. Well, no, I'm not doing that right now. Okay, so I'm going to actually go back into, I'm going to go to this corn number 23 budget and view the reports because I think it's important for you to understand what we have in our reports and how they work. So you can actually call on an economic report or a cash only report. So let's look at this economic report. We have everything kind of nicely summarized here for this corn number 23 budget, but I made some changes. So it's not exactly what we have on our 23 budgets from the university, because I know I increased some prices and so on. And this is all cash rented ground. I've got 604 acres and I'm figuring 145 bushel yield. So it kind of tells us what I've got in there now. And I've got everything nicely summarized here. We go down and we see that I've got total economic cost now of $3.98. And that is on a per bushel basis. And I can also look at a per acre and a total basis. Again, I've got 604 acres in there. Here's the cash report. So let's look and see cash costs are $381. Okay. So, but I'm going to flip back to the economic report. And I also want to show you I can expand all details. So then I can look behind the scenes and see, okay, I have 575 sort of projected as corn price for now with those bushels. Here's my detail and my seed, fertilizer, and so on. So I could quickly look and see if I'm missing something or if I've got some price wrong or something like that. I do have quite a bit in custom services. I actually paid for custom harvest. My son does that work, let's say, or something, and I do pay him because he owns that expensive combine and header. And then I've got, some labor, some unpaid labor in there per acre. You can see those costs and so on. So that's really nice. There's a lot of detail there. All right.
Glennis, we do have a question.
Yes.
And since you mentioned on this, I think you said this was set up as cash rent. Is that right? Yeah. And I know our budgets are set up as if you owned it, but somebody asked about crop share.
Yes,
rent.
we do have a crop share feature too. Yes. So if I go back, let's see if I go to edit details here on that particular budget, I can actually, there's it's a little bit more tedious, but we've got the crop share button here too to figure that out. So you'd want to follow that along. So good question there. Yeah, for sure. I'm going to flip over to the report again. And I'm going to expand all details. And then we've got the print feature, and I want to show you that print feature. You can actually then go in and I can look at details on field operations, materials, and so on. So if I hit print, I could actually save it as a PDF on my computer, or I can go ahead and hit my printer and do that. All right, but I just wanted to show you again, here's that detailed report. So it's about 2 pages with that economic information. And then I can flip on down because I had these marked. Here's my field operations. Again, I do my own planting, spraying. I provide the grain cart, but everything else was custom. And so that information should be down here. Here's the combining and the trucking that's custom and so on. So like if I pay, the supplier or the co-op to do work, that would show up here too. So we've got those costs all. So then I could just run those reports or save those reports. Okay. Let's see, this thing's in the way. And something's in your way there. Okay, there we go. All right. So that's kind of how our reports look. Now, I did want to show you the whole farm feature as well, because this is just one enterprise. So let's say I wanted to look at all of my corn, and I'll go back here to manage enterprises so we can take a look again. We can take a look again at just our 2022 budgets. And I've got this, we've just looked at this, but I also have an irrigated west quarter. Okay, so I have another, I think quarter, 130 or 40 acres of corn. So I want to combine those two and take a look at what is my total cost for that. So I would go to the whole farm. I'm going to click on that. We've got a bunch of features built into the whole farm and more yet to come. But let's say now I've got all of these, but I just want to sort my corn crop. Okay, so here's the two. I'm going to go back up and hit report. So now I could look at a cash or economic report with all of my everything entered. So here's the total bushels that I would have from all of that and what my costs are on a per bushel basis, on an acre basis in total. All right. So I can look down here and see I've got 408 as a total economic cost, but what would it be if I looked at the cash? So it goes back, here's the cash at 347, okay? So again, we're building in, and then with this farm whole farm area, this is where we would allocate overhead, reconcile some of our farm expense totals, put in our buildings and facilities, our vehicles and so on. So we've got that feature built in. Okay, so in just a little bit of the time that I have, I'm gonna now show you, I'm gonna go back to, so it's pretty easy to maneuver. I hope you're picking up on that. It's really pretty easy to move around into this program. And again, we are very, very interested in all of your feedback. So as you use the program and you run into, any issues or errors, how it can be, we would like to know right away, but also like any suggestions or anything that you have. I mean, we're moving along with this thing pretty well, but we're very interested in users feedback for sure. So it shows all of my budgets again, but I can sort those out for my 2022. And here's that 23 corn budget. I'm going to go to the reports area. And okay, when I'm back into that again, I can look at more reports. So I'm going to click on that. So I could actually look at a field operation reports or materials and services report, similar to what I showed you that we can click and print. But here's an analysis section. We've got more things that we want to do with this, but this is also, we've got sensitivity chart built in, break even. We're working on a comparative analysis report, but I want to share with you this risk analysis. All right, so I've got 575 in, I've got, this is the economic side of things. So if I'm covering all my costs, I'm looking at a net return of 155,000 after, revenue minus total costs. All right. So if I go to the risk analysis section now, it's going to look quite different. We've got a lot of narrative in this section to explain what this is. This is really tying, taking a look at now, what if I didn't produce that 145 bushel average? What if I didn't do that? What would happen? So we've got information there, but let's say I'm actually from Gage County. So let's say I've got this dryland farm and I'm in Gage County. And I selected that crop reporting area. We've got everything kind of split by the state and crop reporting areas. Okay. So here's my 145 average or expected yield. NAS average for that area is this on that dry land. And the regional low is 53 bushels. So there was a disaster in 2002. So we did some research and found that that's in that area. That was like the low. Okay. So I'm just going to click on one of these and move on. So let's say I'm just going to put my 145 bushel in here, APH. Now we still have the 2021 figures in. So when we get towards the end of February and we have the new information from crop insurance, we'll be updating this data on what that insurance projected price will be for 2022. So we're waiting for that information, but right now we've got that figured in. So here's our insurance projected revenue per acre. And rather than, let's say 53 bushel, which was the all-time low, let's say I just have 75 bushel yield. Okay, let's say it's dry, things don't really look that much better, but adjust this price to represent an average of December corn futures during the month of October. So if it's dry, I might be looking at it might be even $7. Okay. Our disaster yield is 75. Expected futures price of nearby grain corn contract when you expect to sell your crop. Okay, so what your harvest futures, again, let's say it's $7, but we still have a little bit of a basis of, let's say 20 cents per bushel. Here's our farm revenue. And then down here, we're going to select our crop insurance coverage. You'll notice we have a lot of these little question marks in here. Those are help messages. So I could expand that and it explains more about what I should be doing. So each of those sections I can expand. So, and you can do that through the whole program. Hopefully we've got those. That's another thing. If you run across an area and you're trying to figure it out and our help message didn't really help, that's the kind of feedback that we'd like to hear. So we've got those built in and we're working on those constantly right now to make them better and what they should be. So let's say here I was on dry land, but I'm going to figure a 75% insurance coverage level. And keep in mind, again, the premium was based on the 2021. We know that those are probably going to increase because the volatility and price changes through this last year. So those premiums are going to change a little bit. But let's say I was at a 75% coverage, that was the premium. Now I could take a look at that full report and see where I'm at when I have a 75 bushel yield, but I have insurance coverage. Okay. So, provide some information here. Let's look down at the bottom. Remember what it was before? It was like $155,000 net return, I think it was. Now it's 118. So I'm still not doing too bad. I've covered, some of my, the crop loss, information with crop insurance. Okay. So it's kind of fun to mess with that. And definitely here we calculate the financial shortfall from realizing low yields. In this case, you are 0 short. Okay. If I wanted to go back here and go back and say, all right, well, what if I was back to that 50 bushel yield? Let's say, well, let's just leave that for the sake of leaving that. And okay, let's say I was at 70%. And I want to look back at that report. Let's see where we're at then. Okay, we're still not doing too bad. We're down to 94,000 as far as our net return. And again, we are looking at that on a whole or total cost basis. Okay, so we've got some. That's one of the sort of bells and whistles, I guess, that we've included so far into this program. I'm going to go, I think I can go back to the main area, and I'm back to the enterprise budget report for corn number 23. So just to add some other things, we're hoping to, again, as I mentioned, we'll have crop break-even comparisons and analysis on that. So, because again, like this year, a lot of you are considering what soybeans versus corn looks like. If I'm changing, some inputs, what do those things look like? Labor mapping. So again, do I have the labor to cover all the figures that this shows? Fertilizer decision tools, harvest tracking, and then also grain marketing planning, because eventually, like I said, we'll change that so that's not so static, and you can actually show what you're figuring on for your plan and different price levels and so on through the year. Okay, so I think we're getting close to our time. All right, value per bushel seems high. We are at that on the board. Contract USDA said 480. Okay, rent opportunity.
That in the chat, Glennis. So I know you did. I think you left basis as 0 when you did that, if I recall correctly. You want to just show them quickly how they can put in a basis on that price that you had?
Oh, let me go to that. Okay, I've got to go to the revenue section. Are you talking about the risk module? Is that right?
Yeah, down there where you had expected price. I know at some point there was a box for basis, and it was 0 or blank. I don't remember which.
Okay, that might be, and I don't know since I clicked out of it, but let's look. I'll just go to that. So,
yeah, scroll down a little bit to your harvest. Yeah, just scroll down.
Oh, yes. Okay, right here. So I think I put in one basis. I was putting in like a negative 0.2, 20 cents.
Yeah, so a 20-cent basis would be figured in.
I was thinking there was another area to do that, but I don't see that now. And then I'll just go back to the.
Okay.
Okay.
We have another couple of questions that have come in, one of them regarding labor costs.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you want to show that. I know you went through that really quick because you were unpaid. But the question was any family living expense or return to unpaid labor or management. You want to show them some of the flexibility on putting labor in. I know
Right.
my students probably want to know if they can put in $6 an hour in free gas, because it's probably what they get paid.
That's right. Okay, so I'm back to that corn budget number 23, and I'm going to go back to edit operations, okay, because that's where that gets entered in, because each of these operations, if we are doing it ourselves, okay, and like I said, I think this one I had a custom on the combining. I think planting, we were doing our own planting. So I'm going to go into that area. And this is where, again, we're doing this in April. I don't have it checked. I'm doing custom, so that means we're doing it ourselves. And these are all lit up. So, but anyway, here's the labor. The labor is the first thing on the list. And let's say I don't want to use the university labor at $25 an hour. I could, let's say, Jay, I think, someone could decide that they don't want to put any labor cost in at all, and they could just see what the return would be. So let's say if I'm the owner operator, I don't have anybody else helping me, I could take a look and just leave those costs out. Or as I showed you, I could just enter my information in. I do 100% of that, but actually I'm in the wrong area. I need to go to manage inputs. I need to go to the labor section, and here's those three folks again. University labor is one of them, but here's me, and here's the choices that I have in that I am unpaid, or I could be paid in an hourly basis. You can put whatever you want in there. In this case, since it's a salary, it asks for an annual salary and how many hours. So it splits out an hourly unpaid labor cost. And then, if I do drive the pickup, and let's say I've got, the cell phone part of it, there's things that are covered that are non-cash or cash benefits for me being the owner operator. I left those blank, but you could actually put other value. Let's say your hired person drives the pickup, and they have some kind of, other benefits included, those could be included here too for value. So I could actually mark if this is a family member, in this case, I'm the owner, or I could be a hired person. So all right.
The question on that is, since this is marked as unpaid, but you got a salary in there, right? The 35,000, I think it was. So I think that's about 20 some bucks an hour there. How's that charged out? Is that coming in as return? Is that to be treated like a family living expense withdrawal or whatnot?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're covering that. That's kind of what I said. If let's say you wanted, if you were just looking at all your enterprises and you wanted to cover, $35,000, or you needed to pull that from the farm and you wanted to charge that, that would be there. Now, if I don't know if you noticed in the report, so again, I'd go back, find that particular report. Let's take a look at that. So on the cash side, that labor is not there, okay, because it's unpaid. On the economic side, let's see, it should be there.
I think you scroll past it, go up about 2 lines. There you go.
Yeah, and then let's open it up. It's right here. It's unpaid. So on this particular crop, I'm figuring $5,390 of unpaid labor, in this deal. Okay. So you could take a look and see how is my time getting split over all of the enterprises. And that might be one of those areas that you would want to look at and say, no, I mean, and you could actually just leave it blank and you could put it in later on as an overall labor and then just allocate it per acre, so there's various ways to go about that. But I think that's really an important question is, are you building that factor into your enterprise costs? So.
Yeah, excellent. And then the other question that we have is another good question, which is they have 5 different farms, each with varying crops. Is it possible to show the farm budget for each farm separately and then show the total for the farms collectively? And I know you were doing that when you bunched together the corn and all that, but do you want to go ahead and address that?
That's a good question. We're trying to think of all these different scenarios as we're building this thing. I think what I would do, I'm going to go here to the manage enterprise area, back to that, so I can see that list again. Okay. And it's always easier if I okay. So you can name these however you want. So you could say, South Farm, you have 5 different farms. So farm 1. Okay. And under farm 1, you have multiple enterprises. So you could always mark it farm 1, soybeans, farm 1, corn, however you want to do it. All right. But if you wanted to eventually bring those all together, the way we have this built right now is if you wanted to pull those together in the whole farm, you would want to separate those out as farm 1, enterprise, whatever. Okay, so you can name these however you want to. So you could have the 5 different things, and then you would have, you might have 3 different crops for each. I get that. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, good. All right. If there's any other questions, please type them into the chat. Somebody wanted to leave you with the comment that your $35,000 isn't living in the real world.
Right. I know. That's very, very true.
I wanted to tell him you're cheap.
Yeah, no. Yeah. And then again, you can look at that however you want. I mean, if you've got other non-farm income or whatever it might be, but yeah, you want to value your time. I mean, definitely you want to do that. So it can be whatever you need it to be if you're showing that you want to have that kind of return. And that again would show up on your economic cost reports. If it's unpaid, if it's paid for labor or cash labor, it would show as part of your cash costs. Good question or good comment there for sure.
Yeah, very good. So my students are being shy. They claim they don't have any questions, but they're all mesmerized by your mousing skills there as you bounce around the screen. So we really appreciate the presentation today, Glennis. We know that this is going to be a really valuable tool in the future, and appreciate all the hard work you put into it and the education that you're doing on it. Some people asked about how they could become a tester. Again, anybody can create a login right now and go in and test the software and provide feedback to it. You can also come in and join one of the webinars that Glennis is doing, or some of the in-person programs that are going to take place over the course of the year, and provide feedback that way. But we're always looking for feedback and wanting to make it more useful. We did have, there's another question that popped in. So if the lender wants a family living expense per acre, that can be put in. Yes, that's basically what Glennis was just covering there. And you can bunch on those budgets, you can bunch together things and get a total of whatever you wanted to get on that on a per acre basis. The way she had that worked out there.
Yep, for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, we want to thank everyone for joining us today. We had quite a few people online and a bunch of students here in class today, and really appreciate all the work that you put into that. Remind everybody that this webinar was recorded. It will be posted on our website at cap.unl.edu. That's cap.unl.edu. And if you go there, you can also register for any of our upcoming webinars. And we have those every Thursday pretty much, except for we're skipping a couple of weeks. We got the Women in Ag Conference. We won't have a webinar that week. But for the most part, every Thursday, we got these webinars up. You can join us next Thursday at noon for a look at the beef heifer replacement forecast for this year. We have members of our UNL's beef economics team presenting that. And please click the link in the chat box that is available now to take a very brief survey and provide feedback on this webinar, but also importantly, inform us about upcoming webinar sessions and topics and speakers that we can have come in and present for us. So with that, thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll hopefully see you on a webinar next week or sometime in the future here.
Right, thanks.